The epic and controversial history of the opium poppy. Long before it became a symbol of addiction and empire, the opium poppy was revered. In the ancient world, this flower wasn't just a plant, it was sacred, mysterious, and powerful. The story of opium is a saga that stretches across continents, centuries, and civilizations. It begins not in the bustling cities of Europe or the colonial outposts of Asia, but in the sun-drenched fields of North Africa and the Mediterranean basin. By 3400 BCE, the Sumerians of Mesopotamia were cultivating opium, calling it hulgil, or the joy plant. These early farmers recognized its narcotic power, using it in ritual and medicine. Egyptian scrolls later described opium as a remedy for everything from headaches to insomnia. It wasn't just medicine, it was a bridge between this world and the divine. The plant found a place in sacred rites, funerals, and temples. To ancient priests and physicians, opium was a gift from the gods. From Egypt, opium spread across the Mediterranean. The Greeks and Romans inherited its lore. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, acknowledged its therapeutic uses, though he warned of its dangers. The Roman Empire carried the poppy across its vast territories. Roman soldiers and physicians relied on it for pain relief. Traders carried opium along early trade routes, sowing the seeds of its global journey. But it was the Islamic Golden Age that refined opium into a true pharmacological substance. Arab physicians extracted morphine-like compounds and passed their knowledge to the East and West. As Islamic empires expanded, so did the trade of opium into Persia, India, and China. By the 10th century, it was a key element in healing traditions across Asia. And then came the Silk Road. This vast web of trade routes wasn't just for silk and spices. Opium became one of its most valuable cargoes. Indian farmers, under regional sultanates and later the Mughal Empire, cultivated vast fields of poppies. By the 16th century, opium was deeply embedded in Indian society, used in medicine, recreation, and even offered to guests as a sign of hospitality. The British East India Company, ever the opportunist, saw a gold mine. When the British took control of Bengal in the 18th century, they inherited more than land. They inherited the poppy. The company monopolized its cultivation, regulating production, squeezing out local traders, and ramping up exports. But not for Britain. No, the real target was China. China had something the British desperately wanted: tea. But the Chinese Empire didn't care for British textiles or steel. The trade imbalance was bleeding British coffers, so they turned to opium. By flooding China with Indian opium, the British finally had a product the Chinese would buy, at a terrible cost. By the early 1800s, millions in China were addicted. The Qing dynasty tried to stop the flow, but the British responded with force, twice. The First Opium War exploded in 1839 after Chinese officials seized and destroyed British opium in Canton. Britain, with its superior naval power, crushed Chinese resistance. The 1842 Treaty of Nanking forced China to open ports and cede Hong Kong. But the opium trade didn't stop. And when China resisted again, the Second Opium War broke out in 1856. This time, the British were joined by the French. Once more, the West imposed humiliating terms on China. Opium had become more than a drug, it was a weapon of empire. While colonial powers profited, the consequences were devastating. Entire Chinese provinces were ravaged by addiction. Social structures collapsed, and the once mighty Qing dynasty was fatally weakened. Yet in India, British-run opium farms kept churning. Poppy fields bloomed, not for medicine, but for domination. As the 20th century approached, the world began to reckon with what opium had become. The same plant that once healed the sick had now fueled war, addiction, and imperial greed. In 1909, the International Opium Commission convened in Shanghai, the first step toward global drug regulation. But by then, opium's legacy was already deeply entrenched. Today, its derivatives, morphine, heroin, and synthetic opioids, continue to haunt societies. The global opioid crisis is the modern echo of an ancient story, a story that began with a flower in a sunlit field and ended in smoke, blood, and treaties. From sacred medicine to a tool of colonial conquest, The opium poppy has shaped human history in ways few plants ever have. It connected empires, corrupted governments, and transformed economies. Its journey is a tale of power and poison, of healing and destruction, a tale that, even now, is far from over. Because the poppy still blooms,